going to go over distributive property. And for distributive property, this is when we take, there's a number on the outside, and it will get distributed, which is why it's called distributive property, across either the addition or subtraction. So it's typically problems that have a number on the outside. We'll just use A for that for right now. And some values either added or subtracted on the inside. And we would take the outside number and multiply by each of the inside numbers. As we get to higher level math classes, instead of just one number, A, being on the outside, we have more than that. But this is what we're going to start with right now for the basics. And you're going to multiply and multiply. And then simplify would be to shorten. One way we shorten is by combining like terms, which we just talked about. And then distributive property is another way that we could simplify an expression. So we're going to simplify these expressions by using distributive property, and if there happens to be like terms, we'll do that also. So in number 1, we're going to take the 3 on the outside and multiply by the x and by the 5. So similar to how we did combining like terms, there's an x here, there's no number in front of it, which means there's just that 1 that we don't tend to write, and then the plus sign in front of the 5 tells me that's a positive 5. So I'm taking 3 times 1x, 3 times 1 is 3, and it has an x attached to it, and then 3 times a positive 5 is a positive, we put a plus for positive, 15. In number 4, I have a 2y and a negative 2, because again that sign goes with the number. So 4 times 2y, 4 times 2 is 8, and it has the y attached to it. And then 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. Number 7, we have an x, which is really a 1x, and a positive 2. So we're taking negative 7 times 1x. Negative 7 times 1 is negative 1, and it has the x attached to it. And then negative 7 times a positive 2 is a negative 14. There's a lot of negatives on number 4, so be careful with this one. We're taking negative 2 times a negative 3y. Negative 2 times negative 3 is a positive 6, and it has the y attached to it. And then a negative 2 times a negative 5 is a positive 10. So we attach plus for positive 10. We're going to do the same thing on number 5, only we have 3 terms on the inside. So we've got a 2x, a positive 5y, and a negative 1. So we're going to multiply 3 times. 3 times 2x is 6x. 3 times 5y is a positive 15y. And 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. And on all these that I've done so far, I have no like terms. Back in number 1, I had an x and a constant. Number 2, I had a y and a constant. 3, I had an x and a constant. 4 is a y with a constant. Number 5, we have an x, a y, and a constant. So no like terms so far. Number 6 is going to be a little different though. Number 6, this part here is the distributive property. 2 times the quantity x plus 4. So this plus 3 at the end is not part of the distributive property. Notice it's outside of those parentheses, so we only multiply what's inside these parentheses. So 2 times x, or 1x, is 2x, and 2 times 4 is a positive 8. We stopped multiplying because we got to the end of the parentheses. So then this plus 3x, we just drop that down. We have not touched that yet. And now if I look at it, I notice, well, I have like terms. I've got a 2x and a 3x. Because they're like terms, I can add those together and say, well, that's 5x. And the 8 doesn't have a like term, so it just stays plus 8. On number 7, we have to be careful here. Think about order of operations. When we have order of operations, PEMDAS, we would have to do any multiplying before we do any adding or subtracting. So the 6x plus 5, we actually can't add first because this 5 in this distributive property here, distributive property is multiplication. So this distributive property, being multiplication, has to get done before we can add. So I can't do 6x plus 5. I have to start with the distributive property. So I'm just going to drop down this 6x. We can't change that yet. And now I'm going to distribute this positive 5. Positive 5 times x is a positive 5x. And positive 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. And now I can go ahead and add my like terms. I've got a 6x and a 5x, and that makes 11x. And then I still have that minus 15. Similar in number 8, where I can't do 4 plus 2 because distributive property is multiplication, and multiplying comes before adding. So I can't touch the 4 yet. That's going to stay the same. Then I'm going to do my distributive. 2 times 3x is a positive 6x. This is a positive 2 here. Positive 2 times a positive 5 is a positive 10. And then there's a parentheses, so we stop multiplying. So I have not changed that minus 2x yet, so that also stays the same. And then once we're done with the distributive property, so we're done with multiplying, if we think about order of operations, all I have left here is adding and subtracting. So I go across left to right, combine like terms by adding and subtracting. So I have a 6x, a positive 6x, and a negative 2x. Integer rules tell us that that's going to be 4x. And then I have a 4 and a positive 10, which makes a positive 14. So be careful with your integer rules. You're multiplying whatever is outside the parentheses times anything inside the parentheses. Especially on number 8, this is a common mistake. Do not add the 4 and the 2 first. We do not want to add those first. We're going to do distributive property first because we have to follow order of operations.